Hey guys, welcome to the Y&R Daily Update YouTube channel. Today's topics: the Young and the Restless spoilers. The moment Kane stepped back into Genoa City, there had been a shift. Subtle at first, then gradually more alarming with each passing interaction. Lily had told herself that grief could change a man. Trauma could harden a soul. But even as she whispered those rationalizations to herself, something inside her screamed otherwise. The man standing before her, the one who called her by name, kissed her cheek and whispered familiar memories into her ear, wasn't the man she had once loved. His mannerisms were almost identical, his voice eerily consistent. His knowledge of her most intimate past with Kane too precise to be coincidence. And yet, there was something deeply wrong. His smile didn't reach his eyes. His touch lacked warmth. His reactions were calculated, almost rehearsed, as though he were following a carefully studied script. What troubled Lily most wasn't what he remembered, it was what he didn't. The way he hesitated on Kane's favorite cologne. The slight pause when asked about a childhood memory they once shared. The mispronunciation of a word Kane had always said in a peculiar way. Little cracks in the mask, imperceptible to most, but not to her. Not to someone who had shared a life with the real man. Still, she remained silent. What else could she do? To accuse him without evidence would be madness. And if her suspicions were correct, if this was indeed an imposter, then confronting him would be the last thing she could afford. A man who went to such lengths to become someone else to wear another man's life, like a costume, was not someone to provoke lightly. Lily played her part with the precision of an actress in a high-stakes drama. She smiled. She laughed. She listened as he told stories about his business trips, about people they both supposedly knew. And all the while she watched. She memorized the way he moved, the cadence of his speech, the shadows in his eyes. Deep down, she already knew the truth. But part of her needed confirmation, something undeniable, something real. That confirmation came when she received a message from a contact in Paris, an investigator she had hired quietly weeks before, when her suspicions first began to spiral. The message was simple. Body confirmed. DNA matches Kane Asheb deceased 3 months ago. Her heart stopped. There it was. The truth. Clinical and cold. Kane was dead, had been dead. Buried beneath foreign soil, while this stranger wore his skin and smiled in her face. The realization struck her like a blade. All this time she had mourned him in silence, only to be gaslighted into believing he had somehow survived, returned, changed. But there was no redemption here, no resurrection, only a mask. A horrifying, perfect deception built on obsession and intent. And still, Lily said nothing. Because now she understood the stakes. This wasn't about grief anymore. This was survival. Whoever this man was, he was dangerous. He hadn't just mimicked Kane, he had become him. He had inserted himself into every crevice of Kane's life, from business accounts to family stories, manipulating every thread until it formed a convincing tapestry of lies. His knowledge was terrifyingly complete. Birth dates, habits, financial records, passwords. He was no amateur. This was a man with resources, intelligence, and an agenda. And now, Lily was part of it. What chilled her more than anything was that he seemed to truly believe he loved her. His eyes sparkled with what looked like genuine affection. He brought her gifts, spoke of a future together, made plans for rebuilding what they'd lost. There were moments, fleeting but undeniable, when he looked at her with a longing that seemed all too real. It was that paradox, that contradiction between monstrous deception and sincere desire that made him unpredictable, unstable. She could not treat him like a normal man. She could not accuse, argue, or plead. She had to remain inside the performance, at least for now. And so Lily crafted a plan. She would gather evidence quietly, build a record of every inconsistency, every falsehood, every deviation from the real Kane's life. She began searching his belongings when he slept, scanning documents, recording conversations on her phone with the mic hidden in her jewelry. Her goal was to collect enough to expose him, but more importantly to protect herself, because if she moved too soon, if he even suspected she knew the truth, he would destroy her. This man hadn't gone to such elaborate lengths just to be discovered by a grieving widow with sharp instincts. He had killed Kane. Or at the very least, he knew who had. And now he was living the life Kane left behind, breathing Lily's air, touching her skin, whispering her name like a thief in the dark. What he didn't know, however, was that Lily was no longer afraid. She had survived Kane's betrayal once. She had risen from heartbreak before, and now, with every calculated step, she was preparing to take back control of her world. This deception, this grotesque impersonation, would not be the end of her story. It would be her revenge. But the danger was mounting. The imposter began asking questions, subtle at first, about her phone, her errands, who she was meeting. Then it became more direct. He wanted to know where she went in the afternoons, why she seemed distant. He asked about her dreams, about her memories with him, about things he shouldn't have needed to ask if he were Kane. Lily kept her answers measured. She blamed fatigue, stress, nostalgia. But behind her eyes, a fire was building. She was no longer mourning the man she lost. She was planning how to destroy the one who dared to take his place. And all the while, in the deepest corner of her mind, another thought took root. What if this wasn't just a madman playing a role? What if he was part of something bigger? A network, a plot. What if Kane's death in Paris was no random accident, but the first step in a larger plan to infiltrate Genoa City, to replace, manipulate, consume? She didn't know. Not yet. But she would find out, because now the lies were unraveling. And Lily, the woman who once believed in love, was preparing for war. Lily had reached her limit. The weight of the truth had grown too heavy to bear alone. And the danger she was in had escalated far beyond what a single woman, no matter how strong, smart, or strategic, could handle alone. The man posing as Kane, walking freely through Genoa City with the confidence of a husband and the smile of a liar, was not only a master of manipulation, but possibly a murderer. He had slipped into Kane's life with surgical precision, replacing every detail, mimicking every gesture. And now Lily had the proof: a death certificate from Paris, a DNA confirmation, and the chilling realization that the real Kane had been buried overseas while a stranger wore his name like a stolen crown. She knew she couldn't move recklessly. This imposter was watching her. Every glance, every breath, every hesitation. He noticed everything. He still believed she loved him. He still believed she was fooled. That illusion was her only protection now. But it wouldn't last forever. If she wanted to survive and end this nightmare, she had to bring in reinforcements. And there were only two men in Genoa City she could trust with something this dangerous, this insane, and this explosive: Chance and Victor. Chance, with his background in law enforcement and a moral compass that had kept him grounded through countless scandals, was more than just an investigator. He was a man who believed in truth. And Victor, with his empire, his resources, and his cold, calculating mind, had the power to make people disappear or confess. Together, they were a force that even a chameleon like the Kane imposter couldn't evade. Lily moved carefully. She reached out to Chance first, using coded messages and encrypted calls to avoid suspicion. She didn't say everything outright, only that she needed his help, that something was terribly wrong, and that she had evidence to back it up. When they finally met in private, she laid everything on the table. The DNA results, the odd behavior, the inconsistencies, the steel-locked basement, and the man crying out for help. Chance didn't interrupt once. He listened with the intensity of someone who understood that the most unbelievable stories were often the most true. When she was finished, he nodded gravely and said, "We ll handle this, but we have to be smart." Chance, in turn, knew that only one man in Genoa City could provide the kind of backing this operation would require: Victor. He arranged a quiet meeting with the patriarch of the Newman Empire, laying out the story piece by piece. Victor's face remained unreadable as always, but behind those piercing eyes, wheels were turning at a furious pace. Victor had always seen Kane as a potential threat, a volatile presence, and the thought of someone impersonating him, possibly murdering him, sent a rare chill down his spine. Not out of sentiment, but because of the implications. If someone could replace Kane so seamlessly, who else might be next? His empire had enemies. This could be the beginning of something larger. With Lily, Chance, and Victor now aligned, a new phase of the plan began. They couldn't expose the imposter yet. Not without locking in a confession, or catching him in an irrefutable trap. So, they created one. Victor used his resources to fabricate a leak, a fake news story about financial discrepancies in one of Kane's old offshore accounts. The story was planted carefully, designed to rattle the imposter, to make him paranoid, to push him into reacting. At the same time, Chance began feeding Lily questions to subtly ask in conversation. Pieces of Kane's past that the real man would have remembered, but an imposter, even a well-researched one, would likely get wrong. They tracked everything: expressions, voice modulations, slips of the tongue, and slowly the mask began to crack. The imposter's calm started to fray. He asked Lily if she had spoken to anyone. He became more controlling, more obsessive. He changed passwords. He watched her when she slept. And that was when they knew the trap was working. Then came the turning point. Lily, under Chance's direction, staged a confrontation. She tearfully asked him about the night Kane had supposedly died in Paris, inventing a memory that never existed. A private moment, something only the real Kane would remember. The imposter faltered. He blinked twice, smiled, then changed the subject. That was the slip they needed. The man in front of her wasn't just an actor, he was a murderer. And now, with each move, he was unraveling. Victor launched the next phase. A private security team shadowed the imposter day and night, watching who he met, where he went, what he accessed. He made one crucial mistake. He attempted to withdraw money from a dormant bank account that belonged to Kane, one only the real man could access with biometrics. But the prints didn't match. With that, the final piece of the puzzle snapped into place. The man pretending to be Kane was not only an imposter, he had stolen the identity post-mortem, possibly after killing Kane himself. The truth, as horrifying as it was, began to emerge. Kane had traveled to Paris for a business meeting and never returned. The imposter had followed him there, eliminated him, disposed of the body, and returned to Genoa City under the mask of a resurrected lover. And the motive, likely obsession. Perhaps with Lily, perhaps with power, perhaps with the life Kane had built, all of it stolen and replicated with chilling accuracy. Lily's heart broke anew. The man she had loved was truly gone, not just emotionally, but physically brutally erased, and now his face had been weaponized against her. But she didn't cry. She didn't scream, she focused. She stayed the course, and when Chance and Victor gave her the signal, she played her final role. She invited the imposter to dinner. Dressed in the same gown she wore on the last night she had been with the real Kane. She lit the candles. She poured the wine. She smiled. And as he raised his glass, whispering words of twisted affection, the lights in the room flickered off. A signal. Within seconds, the door burst open and Victor's team surrounded the man. Guns drawn, masks off. The imposter ran, but it was futile. He was tackled, restrained, and unmasked before he could even reach the front door. Under the harsh lights of interrogation, the man finally broke. His name was not Kane. He was a former associate of Sin's from years ago, someone who had been fired, blackballed, erased from corporate circles. But he had studied Kane for years, harbored hatred, and built an obsession. When the opportunity came, he took it, following Kane to Paris, staging his death and stealing everything he had ever wanted: his face, his money, his woman. Lily watched from behind the glass wall as the man confessed. She didn't cry. Her expression was blank. But inside, something vital had been restored. Kane had not died forgotten. He had not vanished without justice. His death now had a voice, and she was that voice. And as she stepped out into the quiet Genoa City night, she knew the storm had passed. But part of her would never trust a smile again. Let me know if you'd like a follow-up where Lily rebuilds her life, or a twist where Damien finally emerges from the steel door after the imposter is arrested. The transcript details a suspenseful storyline from The Young and the Restless, centering on Lily's growing suspicion that the man posing as her husband Kane is an imposter. Upon Kane's mysterious return to Genoa City, subtle discrepancies in his behavior and knowledge raise red flags for Lily, who initially tries to rationalize his altered demeanor as grief. However, her doubts deepen when an investigator confirms Kane's death in Paris through DNA evidence, revealing that the man before her is a dangerous imposter. This stranger has meticulously assumed Kane's identity, infiltrating every aspect of his life, including business, family, and personal memories. Lily, aware of the peril she faces, conceals her suspicions and plays along to avoid provoking the imposter. She secretly gathers evidence by monitoring his behavior, scanning documents, and recording conversations. The imposter, who seems to genuinely desire a future with Lily, exhibits a disturbing mix of calculated deception and genuine emotion, making him unpredictable and dangerous. Realizing the threat is beyond her control, Lily enlists the help of two trusted allies: Chance, a law enforcement figure with a strong moral compass, and Victor, a powerful and resourceful patriarch. Together, they devise a strategic plan to expose the imposter, using fabricated news stories and carefully crafted questions. They unsettle him, prompting slips that confirm his deception and his true nature as a killer who murdered Kane in Paris and assumed his identity. The investigation culminates in a staged confrontation where the imposter falters over a fabricated memory slip, leading to his capture by Victor's security team. Under interrogation, he confesses to his obsession with Kane and Lily, revealing his motives rooted in hatred and power. Though emotionally shattered, Lily finds solace in justice served. Knowing Kane's death will not remain a forgotten tragedy, the story closes with Lily reclaiming control over her life, aware that the scars of betrayal and deception will linger but determined to move forward. Highlights: Lily suspects the returned Kane is an imposter due to subtle behavioral inconsistencies. DNA evidence confirms Kane died months ago in Paris, devastating Lily's hopes. The imposter has meticulously assumed Kane's identity, infiltrating every aspect of his life. Lily secretly collects evidence while maintaining the facade to protect herself. Lily enlists Chance and Victor to help devise a plan to expose the imposter. A staged confrontation and planted stories cause the imposter to slip and reveal himself. The imposter is captured and confesses to murdering Kane, ending the nightmare for Lily. Key insights: psychological manipulation and deception. The imposter's ability to mimic Kane so precisely illustrates the terrifying power of psychological manipulation. His rehearsed mannerisms and selective memory lapses show a calculated approach to deception, designed to maintain the illusion while hiding his true identity. This underscores how trauma and grief can cloud judgment, making it difficult to discern truth in emotionally charged situations. Grief as a double-edged sword. Lily's initial acceptance of the imposter as a changed Kane highlights how grief can distort perception. Her struggle between hope and suspicion reflects the human tendency to cling to lost loved ones, even when evidence points to harsh realities. This emotional complexity adds depth to her character and raises questions about how grief can be weaponized by others. Importance of evidence-based action. Lily's decision to quietly gather proof before confronting the imposter demonstrates the necessity of strategic thinking in life-threatening situations. Her use of surveillance, recording devices, and third-party investigators exemplifies meticulous planning, and underscores that confronting dangerous individuals without concrete evidence can be catastrophic. Trust and alliances in crisis. The alliance between Lily, Chance, and Victor highlights the importance of trusted relationships when facing extraordinary challenges. Chance's law enforcement background and Victor's resources complement Lily's intimate knowledge of Kane's life, showing that complex problems often require multifaceted solutions involving diverse expertise and power. Duality of human nature. The imposter's paradoxical behavior. His calculated deception paired with moments of genuine affection illustrates the complexity of human psychology. His obsession blurs the line between love and control, making him unpredictable and dangerous. This duality complicates how Lily must interact with him, balancing caution with emotional restraint. Justice and closure through confrontation. The staged confrontation and subsequent confession underscore the narrative that truth and justice require courage and careful orchestration. The imposter's eventual breakdown confirms that exposing lies demands pressure and strategy, and that justice, while painful, is essential for healing and reclaiming agency. Identity theft as a form of violence. The imposter's act of physically and socially erasing Kane's existence by assuming his identity is a form of violence beyond the physical murder. It represents a complete takeover of a person's life and legacy, highlighting themes of power, obsession, and the fragility of identity in a modern, interconnected world. Conclusion: this detailed narrative from The Young and the Restless explores themes of loss, deception, and resilience through Lily's harrowing experience with an imposter who murdered her husband and assumed his identity. The storyline emphasizes the psychological toll of grief, the dangers of manipulation, and the necessity of strategic alliances to seek justice. Lily's journey from doubt to empowerment illustrates the strength required